Well, good afternoon, Mrs. Ackerman. I almost said Mrs. Hamilton. That would be highly outdated information. So thank you for preaching on the most difficult, controversial subject of the entire 50 steps. Well, maybe the second most. There's one coming up in a few weeks that might be just as controversial. Are you excited? It's a political year.
Oof. Is anybody? I am.
Yeah, a few people are.
Oh man, I guess there's people who are excited for the potential of change. I was talking to somebody last night who's trying to sell their house, but all the real estate agents are like, "Don't do it. It's an election year." And then I've got another friend I'm trying to make plans with who works in politics, and it's like basically there's months that we can't make plans because their work schedule is just going to be insane. So it is interesting year. And on the world I'm in, which is fundraising and nonprofits and donations, they all tend to take a significant dip in election years. So
Okay, because they're giving to their whatever party that they're affiliated with, perhaps.
that and the future feels really uncertain. They're focused on something that's fearful. I think it has a lot more to do with state of mind than it actually has to do with where the dollars are going.
Right. Yeah. Election years are poor. Well, I'm glad we did our mission trip earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe less affected by that. And of course, the last 2 weeks of news has certainly I feel like now we're actually really in the season if we weren't in it before. So
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely amped up. Of course, starting somewhat with the debate, which is, of course, now somewhat irrelevant. We were in church on Sunday morning when the news hit about Biden dropping out of the race. So I was in the nursing mother's room streaming our service, and Joseph was in the service. I'm like texting him the updates. And of course, we're totally just paying attention to the sermon.
yes, I think we've already answered the question: is how can politics lead to sin? Which, if you're not paying attention to the Word of God being preached by any pastor, then obviously we've got a problem here. Are you personally, other than the fundraising and how friends are tied up as if it were a CPA during tax season, but it's for the whole year? Other than that stuff, how do you personally feel about election year? Is there a party that's super excited? Is it just like, are you wearied by the whole thing?
I think wearied. I think what we've seen just statistically, all the research is the vision just keeps getting wider and wider and wider in our nation. And the more it's a talking point, the more hurt there seems to be. And um, I mean, I was I was doing something earlier this week where I had a coworker who was just talking at me agenda the entire time I'm trying to get this task done. And I'm like, okay, love and be present, love and be present. But really, I'm like, I feel like so many of us we kind of see things the way we see them,
Yeah,
and conversations tend to not be fruitful in any direction other than maybe creating angst and anxiety or division at times.
yeah, yeah. The amped up division is hard. Do you think it's always been like this in any democracy where people have regular? I mean, we were just in India during that election, and I mean, I don't know if our tension compares to that tension. It feels to me it sort of puts it all in perspective. But uh, in our country, is your sense that it's worse now, or has it sort of always
It's
been?
not my sense, it's the research. The research is it's worse now. I mean, you look at 30 years ago where the median viewpoints were, and you look at it as two icebergs, right? Where it's like your conservatives and your Republicans and the median view, and they went like this is specifically Pew Research has done this one, and like every decade it ends up going, and now you've got it here where it's like you conservative Republican, you're all the way over here, you're conservative Democrat, you're all the way over here, your views, and even just like breaking it down topic to topic, the data points are doing this in terms of percentage of Republicans view this, percentage of Democrats view it this way. Like all major topics, the division is greatly increasing.
Okay.
And
And you said the last 20 years? Is that what the Pew Research, or did you throw out the
um
number?
Pew Research, they did theirs like it was like 84, 94, 04, 14, or maybe just 94, 04,
Okay.
14, or something like that. And then others have done more research than 14, because of course, since 2014, the last 10 years, we've seen crazy division. I mean, COVID amplified things like crazy because there was a very strong, if you view it this way, you will do this. If you view it this way, you will do this,
Okay.
with physical, tangible evidence, you know?
Right. So there's the middle is disappearing. You have people pushing on either side, or maybe pushing out of the arena altogether, like people just disconnecting from political debate or opinion because they don't even want to deal with it. Like so
Yeah.
people are pulling away from either left or right, or maybe out of the whole thing altogether.
What's interesting is the data does say that there's fatigue, and there's obviously considerably less trust, and that a lot of people are not wanting to identify fully with a specific political party, but at the same time, like when the spectacle is on the stage, everybody's tuning in to watch. And so, while there is a mental fatigue of wanting to tune out, I think there is an absolute car crash happening in the headlines every day. And so it's kind of unavoidable to be
Yeah.
tuned in.
Hard not to rubberneck at the crash kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Why are we polarizing? What's happening in our society and culture that's causing us to polarize more?
I think rhetoricians, is that how you say, people who study rhetoric? They would say a lot of it is the way that we talk about it, right? Like there used to be a certain class and deference even given to people who held different viewpoints, and the conversation, the talk points, the way we're talking as the political figureheads on the stage are very us versus them, angry, violently us versus them. And
Okay. So
I've seen,
are you saying it's the leaders who've promoted this, or do you think it's something that's happening in our culture that's amping up the rhetoric?
I think
Okay.
it's all
Is it social media? Is it is it something that's happening more with older people and less than younger people? Like, are you seeing people in your generation who are not quite as intensely polarized, or do you think it's across the board?
I do feel like the greatest polarization right now might be my parents' generation. But maybe that's just because they're the ones who are active on Facebook. That's what I see, you know. But I think that's who is giving to campaigns. That's who's spending the most time tuned in. That's who's talking about it the most.
Are you ready, Boots? Start walking.